Namaste, everybody, for what will be a long one, the Kingdom of Sind. It's a video I thought I'd made quite a while ago, but apparently I didn't, so it's time to rectify that oversight. Sind is the Mystara equivalent of India, and it's also one of the worst managed nations in the setting. It's a rich land with a ton of culture. It was reportedly going to be the 15th gazetteer before TSR killed the line. It's apparent that a lot of work was put into the nation because of its appearance in Champions of Mystara. It has 14 pages of background, more than double that of most nations presented in the book. Enough build-up. Welcome to Mystara. I'm Mr. Welch, and I hope you like naan bread. The Kingdom of Sind, which should be the Rajasthan of Sind, is ruled by the Raja and is directly above the Rajasthan of Kabul. Still, it's called the Kingdom of Sind, and I'm already getting derailed. It's a large independent nation west of Darkhan. It partially encircles the Etrugan Plateau to the northwest and south. It's a vast nation stretching from the Sea of Dread to the border of Glantry. At 147,000 square miles, it's almost double the size of Darkhan. And despite its huge size, less than half of it is habitable, as mile after mile is nothing but scrub hills, swamps, or desert. Only the regions close to the large rivers are settled in large numbers, with a few oases having a significant population. Of note is the nation's two spellings. There's Sind and Sindh, as there wasn't an agreed-upon spelling in the early mentions of the nation. Champions of Mystara embraces both versions, depending on whether it's a native speaker or a foreigner mentioning the nation. Those outside of Sind tend to leave off the H. The common stereotype of Sind is that it is incredibly wealthy, but only for those in charge. It's not an inaccurate description either. It is highly stratified, with a rigid caste system, and rising out of one's caste is impossible. Even dealing with someone of a lower caste is discouraged unless absolutely necessary, going so far as ritually bathing after a meeting to cleanse yourself of their touch. Sindhis are expected to follow their caste from the day they are born till the day they die, even if they are untouchable. Improving one's station is considered one of the biggest taboos in the nation, and this is reinforced constantly in their religious teachings. This is one of the reasons why Sindhi adventurers tend to be rare, with a few notable exceptions. Their culture tends to sort foreigners into equivalent castes based on their occupation and skin tone. Lighter skin tones tend to be considered of lower caste, as it reminds them of the Urduk, a nomadic tribe they have long been hostile to. This attitude tends to confuse visitors, as they don't understand why random strangers treat them with disdain, while the same strangers almost idolize others in their party. Sind is divided into 11 provinces. There used to be a 12th called Jabul, which broke away in 609 AC and became its own nation. The population is plagued with land ill-suited for farming. Even the Asanda riverbanks, where most farmers grow crops, are too salty for everyday use. Only through clerical magic can irrigation purify the water. This barely produces enough food for the citizens of Sind, and starvation is an ever-present threat. The nation imports a massive amount of food from Darkhan, but dietary differences restrict the type of foodstuffs accepted. Throughout its history, Sind has been an unstable nation with natural disasters or internal strife. The provinces regularly waged war on each other in the past. Only in the last few centuries has Sind had anything that could be called a stable government. Natural disasters are common, such as monsoons, earthquakes, droughts, and massive storms from the plains of fire called the Marut Sanat. Not the elemental plane of fire, but the part of the Great Waste where giant storms sweep through every few decades and burn down every village. Droughts can last years, resulting in mass starvations, especially in the lower castes. Only the fact the lower castes make up the largest population in Sind keeps the nation from completely self-destructing, and in most significant disasters, just barely. Sind has several geographical features, the largest being the Sind Desert to the west, which stretches to the north as well. It makes up over a third of the nation, a rocky desert broken up by various rugged plants. It's home to tens of thousands of nomads who don't get along with the Sindhi, and the feeling is mutual. The Nimkin Yalaka is a large swamp near the country's center and one of the most dangerous places in the nation. It's a salt marsh filled with all sorts of nasties, including the Malakaz, the evil spirit from the Desert Nomad series. It's the source of the Asanda River and the reason behind its high salinity. Every monsoon season, the salt swamps floods and dumps large amounts of salt in the Asanda Valley. This region is the most fertile in Sind in size, the most heavily populated, and the most vulnerable to natural disasters. It thrives on river traffic, and half of the population can be found along the banks of the Asanda River. The oasis of Sindistran is where the capital of Sair Ulan is located, and the traditional seat of power for Sind. This oasis is fed by thousands of springs, making it the largest source of clean water in the northeastern desert. When merchants think of Sind, Sair Ulan is the first impression. It is a magnificent city where the nation's wealth has been concentrated since its founding. Extravagant buildings line the streets, and elaborate temples and palaces showcase past projects by former rulers. The city is a perfect example of everything wrong with Sind. Its people starve while its leaders live in opulence. The Raja fails to see the problem with the situation, thinking his people should see what their labors have built for their betters and be pleased with their efforts.
Not a great plan.
The caste system in Sind has created subcultures in the various groups. Each segment of the population are taught only to deal with their own kind unless necessary. Each caste has its own style of dress, diet, slang, and greetings. The caste system dictates all manner of Sind culture. The difference in rank determines gifts and meals between members of different castes. A noble will expect a feast from anyone he visits, whereas a farmer would only get a single piece of fruit. Only the untouchables are immune to this tradition, for the simple fact that no one will ever have anything to do with them. The Himayas are the ruling caste, descendant of those who led the Sindhi army centuries ago against a Red Orc invasion. They are the highest caste, and they are found at the top of whatever they do. They are expected to fill governmental roles, they comprise the military, and they are often the guildmasters. They get the best education, are held in the highest honor by the other castes, and possess large amounts of wealth from past generations. It's good to be a Himaya. The Rishiyas are the caste of the priesthood and have certain benefits that even the Himayas lack, but only for dealing with the lower castes. Rishiya, while technically a lower caste than the Himaya, are treated in higher regard than any of the others. Even the ruler bows down to the Purahita, the highest-ranking clergy in Sind. The clerics can ignore the taboo about dining with other castes and can even interact with the untouchables, but aren't exempt from the ceremonial bathing after dealing with another caste. Jadugarya are the magic users, or their descendants. Just because a child can understand magic does not automatically mean it becomes part of the caste. Jadugaryas are still part of the system. A child with arcane talent that isn't a part of them doesn't get their help. In comparison, a child born into the caste that can't cast magic will still get a complete education and will be taught how to support wizards. The caste has the duty of using their magic to help others, for a price, in an order set by the caste of those requesting the spells. If someone of a higher caste requests help, everyone below him must wait, as cutting in line is a time-honored tradition in Sind. Even the untouchables can request magical support, though they are dead last on that list and get pushed back even further if anyone else asks for help in the meantime. This usually means that the wizards never get around to helping the lower castes. The Prajaya are the craftsmen and laborers, making up a large portion of the population. They are the farmers, smiths, artists, and masons who do the majority of the work. Jobs are passed down by family. If you were born the son of a blacksmith, you will be a blacksmith. If a child has no talent for their task, they can be adopted by a family that practices a trade that they're good at. The Prajaya have their own pecking order, where farmers look down on smiths, who look down on artists. Your skin color largely determines this. The darker-skinned ones look down on the lighter-skinned Sindhis because of their different heritages. Kuliyas are the lowest of all the castes. These are unskilled laborers and those who work around the dead. The light-skinned Kuliya are known as the Nanja and are considered the untouchables. They have very few rights, and those who encounter them must not just clean themselves, but their clothes as well. The Kuliya are looked down on by every other caste, despite being the second most numerous, making up almost a third of Sind. Still, they are taught to be happy with their lot, so few become adventurers and just dig ditches. Being born into a caste doesn't automatically guarantee success. A Rishiya who lives a life of poverty among the huddled masses of untouchables will have far less than a Prajaya who is a master weaponsmith. But the sword maker must still give all respect to the priest, no matter how wretched they might seem. A wizard that is asked for a magic spell by the priest, who can pay very little, will still have to perform it before he enchants the item for a craftsman, despite that commission being much more profitable. There is a small but growing part of the population who wants to at least improve the lives of the Kuliya, and more so the untouchables. These forward-thinking individuals want at least some fundamental rights for the lowest caste. Forcing them to work only in specific professions hurts other fields where many workers are needed. More traditional Sindhi look down upon these individuals. Most of the population sees these reformers as corrupted by foreign influences of equality of freedom. People have been judged by their skin tone and lineage for centuries. Why stop now? Another major issue with Sind is the economy, or the lack of a functional one. Nowhere in the known world is there as much of a divide between the haves and the have-nots. More than half the nation sits on the verge of starvation, while their leadership enjoys daily feasts and lives in opulent palaces. Worse, the poor are told that this is the natural order and they shouldn't question it. Even worse, almost all of them don't. The land is barely arable. The nation is one natural disaster away from famine. So farmers with the best lands naturally prefer to grow export crops like cotton, tea, and mulberries for the silkworms. Sustenance farmers rely on suboptimal land to grow rice and dates. Coinage is so rare on the lower classes that most of them have to rely on barter. That causes another problem, as the Sindhi culture requires people to perform favors for others if asked, as long as that favor is allowed in the caste system. The example given was a farmer asking a blacksmith for a plow. He won't have the money to pay for that plow, so he has to donate crops. Crops that he needs the plow to plant. When the harvest comes, the farmer turns over a portion of the crops to the blacksmith. Unless Sind has one of its famous droughts, and then instead he has to owe the blacksmith, and the debt rolls over to the following year. This can cause a cascade of debt, which doesn't end in the borrower's death. In situations like these, the debt is transferred to his children, which causes an increasing cascade of poverty. The Sind taxation system is a significant part of their problem, as it keeps the money centered at the top and the poorest barely fed. The three privileged classes pay 25% of their income to the government unless their job requires them to provide for the other castes. This can be charity work, providing services for the lower classes, or dedicating your life to helping the Sindh government, like working for it. Nice gig if you can get it. The lowest caste doesn't have to pay taxes. Their work is considered their tax. This means they have to work for one of the three upper castes year-round in exchange for food and shelter. It's not slavery because they are free to choose who to work for. Of course, they have to move to that person's place to change jobs, and that's a bit difficult for someone who has never seen a coin in their life. Yeah, it's slavery. Serfdom at best. The craftsman caste can pay in coin for the wealthier members. The rest pay in goods. The army is equipped with new weapons when the swordsmiths pay their taxes. It's an ineffective system, but it will never change as long as it benefits the government. Sindh's adherence to tradition causes most of its problems, especially in an area not primed for agriculture. For example, their judicial system is barely functional. The military serves as the police, with each Raja expected to use their troops to enforce the law. You can't arrest someone of a higher caste. That requires a member of the Hamaya, meaning higher caste criminals often get away with crimes on the lowest caste members. The judge is required to have memorized the entire book of laws, as written by the ancient poet Dhamma If one isn't available, the accused must be taken to a location where a judge is available. Failing that, a council of one member of each caste will sit in judgment, even if none of them know what the law actually states. They do this because this is the way it's always been done. And if convicted, the criminal can pay someone to take the punishment for them, even the death penalty. Since dying for a higher caste is considered an express ticket to a better life in your next reincarnation, some people will take the criminal up on that offer. The Sindh government consists of the Raja, or King of Kings. He creates laws, dictates policy, and is mainly responsible for everything. But his power is not absolute. A council of 11 advisors assists him, each sent from a different province. They can veto any law he passes with a simple majority. But then he can reissue it, and the second time he can't be vetoed. It's risky to go around a veto as it tells the council the king doesn't care about the will of his people. If an unpopular law is passed, the holy caste will denounce it on the street and demand it be rescinded immediately. The Rishya will unite in this task and try to turn public opinion against the law. This isn't an idle threat. More than one Raja has been overthrown after angering the populace, or been torn to shreds in the streets. The mob veto is very much an option in Sindhi politics. The current king is Chandra ul Nurvi, who has reigned for 8 years. He is kind-hearted, loves his family and his people, and he is a just ruler. Plus, he's a guy whose stats and write-up are entirely at odds with each other. He's got an 18 wisdom score and makes some of the worst possible mistakes in Mystara's timeline. In canon, he's an ineffective ruler who's more concerned with his personal interests than running his country. In his biography, his only weakness is his inability to understand evil, so he maintains an extensive spy network to find traitors. But this is the same king of Sindh that gets conquered by the master of Hul in record time, who squandered millions of gold pieces away to build a floating pavilion to carry treasure on. It's up to you on how to run him, the kind-hearted king of kings, or the foolish ruler obsessed with self-gratification. I tend to play him as the fool. There are many mystic orders in Sindh, comprising the largest number of mystics or monks Mystara has. These are primarily members of the Rishya caste, but a few take members of any caste, even untouchables and foreigners. They are all sworn to poverty, possessing only what they wear or can carry. They spend their lives performing good deeds, asking only for food in return. They believe that doing so will increase their chances for a better reincarnation in the next life. They have little organization outside their core beliefs. Some are nomads, others stay in town. You can see them either individually or gathered in cloisters, especially around holy sites. All of them seek to better themselves, either through extreme hardship, mental exercises and puzzles, wandering the world searching for wisdom, physical exertion, or doing the right thing no matter the cost. The population looks up to the mystics, even if they consider their ways a little strange. The regions of Sindh are as varied as its people, though with mixed results. Each province is run as its own independent kingdom as long as they follow the basic laws and send 20% of their taxes to the Raja's tribute. Other than that, they're left alone. All of them mint their own currency, meaning Sindh has more types of coins than any other nation. Only with 2 coins made nationally, both forms of the platinum piece. But adding in the provincial coins, you've got every type of coinage, multiple duplicates, and more exotic ones like the platinum and ruby guru worth 25 gold pieces, and the platinum rupee worth 5 gold pieces like other platinum pieces. Azadgal was once part of the province of Jingal and stands as one of the wealthiest provinces in Sindh. The land is rife with mineral wealth, with precious metals like gold and platinum often found on the surface. This has proven advantageous to the local Raja, who has his farmers grow food crops for their consumption rather than the cash crops that other provinces grow. Because of this and other factors, the less privileged castes are far more well-off than their counterparts in the rest of the country. Their Raja is looking to expand his borders, especially with Jingal, taking their mines as his own. He employs a small army of spies and scouts to ever so subtly grab the numerous mines just over the border from his province. Barat Khan consists of a group of oases in northwestern Sindh, which are constantly threatened by humanoid raiders. Despite being mostly desert, the province has a large population settled around these 4 large oases. The cities are fed by numerous springs that allow life to flourish in the region, which also attracts regular humanoid attacks. The current Raja has lost all of his sons in battle over the decades, but still has 3 grandsons to carry on the family name. He has sent numerous requests for aid to his ally, the province of Kadesh, but after multiple refusals, he finally got troops that were sent to help, and even 100, far less than what was hoped for. Still, the Raja is preparing for the final battle with the humanoids to protect his people. Punjab is a poor province located in the Kurish Massive mountain range. Its mines produce few minerals, its farms are poorly suited for growing food. The Raja depends on the king's aid, and he tries to hide his fiefdom's poverty by sending back a portion of the aid in taxes. He has plans to remove Chandra el-Nervi and take what is rightfully his, according to himself. He has built a secret army and awaits the Raja's visit. The only problem is that el-Nervi is very well aware of this plot and has ensured that the Raja's generals are loyal to the throne rather than the treasonous provincial governor. Jalawar sits at the Asada River Delta on the northern banks, one of the more fertile regions in Sindh. It also stands apart as having the only woman to serve as the provincial leader, Rani Drasana Madhar. She wisely rules her region by not concentrating on cash crops and instead tries to defeat her people first. The land still isn't incredibly fertile, but growing food takes much less effort. Her land has some of Sindh's only heavily forested areas, giving her the right to care for the royal elephants. She has a problem with Jabul in the south, including the theft of a ship on its way to Yavdalim with a large amount of tribute. She has no proof of that, but she does have a strong suspicion. Jingal, or West Jingal as it still calls itself, used to be twice its size. After a power struggle decades ago, the eastern half of Jingal broke away and became Azagal. The province has never recovered fully. It's famous for having control of the Salt Swamp, a major route for western caravans. Guides familiar with the swamp are hired to take caravans through the wetlands, as without one of them, it's impossible to navigate the many forks or identify the high ground. The Raja still covets the numerous mines taken from his province by Adzagal, and secretly plots with bandits and raiders to take the mines back by force. With both provinces actively planning to attack each other, a civil war is going to break out sooner than later in this area. Kadesh was the last holdout in the unification of Sindh, something they are still proud of today. Because of their military abilities, the province has even less oversight from the throne than their neighbors. Their warriors are feared, and rightfully so. Kadesh has turned back humanoid hordes that have destroyed entire cities. Despite being great warriors, the land is mineral poor, especially when it comes to wood. Simple firewood commands a hefty price in Kadesh. The Raja appears friendly, but has a small army of assassins to eliminate governmental leaders so his family can ascend through marriage. So far, his plans have worked out magnificently, though he's unaware that his son has similar plans about his father. Nagpuri is the only province not run by a Hamaya caste member, but instead by wizards. The province produces more cash crops than any others, but the poorer caste can survive thanks to the region's regular rainfall compared to the rest of the nation. Nagpuri lies mostly north of the Etrugan Plateau and has a long border with Darakan. It benefits from the numerous caravans from the east, even having a game preserve for the wizards to store their creations. This province is least like the others, but it still keeps with the traditions, if nothing else, to prove that they are better Sindhi than their rest. Peshmir is the northern territory defined by Lake Hast, the largest freshwater lake in Sindh. This province trades with Glantry and Windar and has become quite wealthy. On paper, the province makes most of its money through mining obsidian, a profession that has made the lower castes wealthier than the counterparts in other provinces. Despite the monsoons that reach the province, often bringing water black with pollutants, Lake Hast stays blue all year round. The secret behind Peshmir's success is a hidden gold mine that its Raja keeps from Nervi. The king suspects something, but his agents have yet to find a trace of the secret source of income. Putnabad is found on the southern border with Jabul and consists of badlands below the Asanda Delta. It's a poor province, with most of its wealth coming from the shipping in its capital, Johor. This city is a microcosm of Sindh, with elaborate and beautiful spires and palaces surrounded by a wall that keeps the wretched masses in their place. Its conquest by Jabul is a major goal for the Black Raja, something that the leaders of Putnabad are very aware of. The spy game is at its worst in the Pearl of Putnabad. Shadra Khan is one of the largest provinces and with the most varied climates. It has a bit of every biome found in Sindh. The province has little in the way of conflict. It makes most of its money through various sources, and it's divested enough that losing any one of them wouldn't be catastrophic. The Raja is only 13 years old. Fortunately, his uncle serves as regent and has proven to be a competent one. There is a rumor that an ancient city is lost near the Salt Swamp under the village of Karagaj. There's no evidence that this city was made from a giant seashell, according to the legends, but people still find ancient relics like coins and pottery from a long-lost settlement in the region. Sindristan holds the capital and is the power source of the Ur-Nervi dynasty. Located in the nation's center, this series of oases is where all the caravans intersect, making it a city built on trade. It has few natural resources except water, but its central location makes it perfect for a stopover. By tradition, all caravans make their way to the Sindristan oasis, and the Sindhi love their traditions. Of course, the Raja of Sindristan is Chandra Ur-Nervi's brother, who plans to assassinate him. This is a common tradition among Sindhi nobles, and again, Sindhis love their tradition. That's Sind, and yes, it was a long one. It's a nation that is in sad shape. The nobles don't care about the lower castes, it can barely feed itself, and its caste system holds back any progress that could help it. Still, it's a land chock full of adventure, and a nation that most players know little about. That makes it perfect for a culture shock campaign. Next week, I'm heading to Eadrin in Alphatia. Only for the first time, I'm using Bruce Hurd's expanded gazetteer setting found on his webpage. If anybody's entry into Mystara after TSR killed it deserves to be canon, it's Bruce. Until next week, remember to open the Bombay doors.